welcome to the interview on France 24. Today we are going to discuss the death penalty, and my guest is Robert Badinter. He was in the early 80s the French Justice Minister, the one who abolished the death penalty. Hello, Mr. Badinter. Thank you very much for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
A few days ago, you were with the French President Emmanuel Macron, and he said he planned to fight for the universal abolition. And he said that, among other ways, he will fight for this abolition with the United Nations. But isn't it a bit a lost cause? Because we know that in the United Nations, in the UN Security Council, you have the United States, who is still using the death penalty and who has a veto.
You also have China, close with the United States, together on the same side. Together on the same side. This is remarkable, and it has to be noticed. Both of them practice death penalty. China, of course, much more than the United States. But the association between the two on the bench of the practitioners of death penalty is a shame for the United States.
So going through the UN, is it a way to put some pressure on those countries publicly?
Pressure is not the right word. Consciousness is the one. Clarity, that's the point. The truth is that the abolition of death penalty is the law of history. You mentioned 40 years ago when France at last decided to abolish. At that time, 37 states only had abolished among all the United Nations. 40 years afterwards, what's the trend? Not the trend, the flux. What's the flux, the result? 37, we are now 148. 120 have abolished in laws, remaining in fact. That's how it is. So 37 to almost 150, that shows the progress of abolition of death penalty. And it brings me to the fact that only the United States in great Western democracies remain alone with this bloody symbol, useless and a shame for the United States. I tell it, I'm personally an American file. I was trained in American universities so long ago, and I've always liked the United States. But I tell you, it's a shame and a bloody spot on the face of the great American democracy. And for what?
Do you have any hope it can change in the coming years in the US? We don't expect anytime soon the Biden administration to say we need to stop this, or even all the US states.
You must always refer to the film, not to the picture, not to the instant picture. The worst period in the last years of the United States was under Mr. Bush Jr. as a president. In 1999, almost 100 executions. Last year, 20. I would not use the term only, but take it clearly from 199 to 20. Even with Mr. Trump executing on the federal level immediately before he left as he wanted to leave a trace of blood on his final days of the presidency. But what you have to always keep in mind, and I always say it among the French and the European circles, the United States is a federal state. It's not united.
Yeah, it's not a unified bloc of country. Especially not on this issue.
Criminal legislation depends variable according to each state. And if you look at the various states, the trend to abolition is stronger, stronger, stronger. And recently, Virginia, very old member of the Union, who had always kept the death penalty, has abolished it. And nowadays, more states have abolished in the United States death penalty than the remaining ones. So that's the trend, but it's the trend of history too.
Is it a matter of political courage? I mean, many people, of course, in the population, even in France or in the US, still advocate for death penalty. But in 1981, when you and President Mitterrand in France abolished the death penalty, it was a very unpopular decision. So it means...
No.
More French people wanted to keep it.
Let's be clear about it. It was not a decision taken by the president. It was, according to the Constitution, a measure which was proposed by the government after Mr. Mitterrand, who presided France at that time, had announced that if he was elected, it would mean abolition.
Correct.
No, and two, all the members of the majority had in their program clearly abolition of death penalty, whether it was the presidential election or the parliamentary elections. The contract was clear with the nation. If you send all majority, send us a majority, abolition. So what is democracy? It's not the submission to the worst pulsions inside the nation. It's a contract. It's a contract between the people and its representative. What would have been a failure to democracy is the case when the President of the Republic and the Parliament would have voted the abolition of death penalty without it in the program. But a program is a contract with the nation, and if the nation wants it, then it's not like in restaurants. You don't pick up this and this and this. You know it's a menu, what you will have. And the people of France voted at a large majority for Mr. Mitterrand and the left coalition with death penalty abolition. So it's not, and I will never let it pass, it is not an undemocratic measure against public opinion. Public opinion is not the law of democracy. The law of democracy is the elections of a parliament freely elected by the people. That's the law of democracy. You don't find it in the demagogue style.
Mr. Badinter, thank you very much for your time today. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for watching and stay with us on France 24.